Today, with the first pick, we're talking rookie quarterbacks. We'll also check in on second-year quarterback Will Levis, who hasn't had it quite as bad as Bryce Young, but there have certainly been some bumps in the road there. We'll also highlight two of our favorite rookie efforts, one from offense and one from defense. And because it's Tuesday, we have to start things off with everyone's favorite segment, Over Rick Actions. But first things first, chuckle from Rick there. I'm Ryan Wilson. That's Rick Spielman. This is episode 212. Wait, that's not right.
No, there's Ryan. You're getting all confused. You're like, oh, you're a mess.
I'm a mess. I just got home. So, Rick, you got to take over. How many days until the 2025 NFL draft?
It's like you haven't had coffee, and that's the one thing you survive on.
You're right.
You're a mess today. So let's try to get it together because we only have, Ryan Wilson, 212 days until the 2025 NFL draft. We're not going to be able to function, and this program isn't going to be able to function unless you're on your A game.
Yeah, you know what? I feel like we're either the Bengals or the Jaguars right now. We got to get this thing figured out.
I'm kind of the Commanders right now. You look like the Jaguars right now.
Yeah, I was in Stamford, Connecticut with our buddy Joe Musso yesterday, and I'm watching the Monday night game, both of the games, and I was singing Spielman's praises about putting that Commanders team together and how good they've looked so quickly.
Just a consultant.
You got the shirt on to prove it.
I don't want to get kicked off again. That gig ended. So.
In the meantime, to help Rick not get kicked off, hit the old like button here on YouTube, and you can leave us a 5-star review to make us happy on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can also leave the name of a FBS or FCS draft eligible player you want us to evaluate. We want to start doing that on Thursday's show, so check that out and keep the reviews coming. But in the meantime, Rick, this is what all the people came to see. Wait, do you have something you want to say? Sounds like you have something you want to say.
No, I'm good. I'm anxious to hear what you have to say.
Well, it's time for Over Rick Actions. I mean, it's Tuesday morning. What else are we going to start with? All right. First things first. I teased it a second ago.
These have not been disclosed to me, so they're coming right off the cuff, which I love. It's like
that's right. So
it's like being at a press conference when I had to go up there and do a press conference, and you have no idea what's coming, so you overreact to everything. The mainstream media. You're playing that role today, as you do every Tuesday and Thursday.
You know, hold on. I got my press hat. Hold on. There we go.
Oh, now it's official.
Hold on. I took out my mic. It's falling apart. Say it again.
What is that? Are you Freddy Krueger? I'm
like the 1940s guy, the press guy with the press thing in his. I'm like Clark Kent.
You look like Freddy Krueger, in my opinion, but go ahead.
Things have fallen apart off the rails.
One of the greatest all-time horror movies ever.
So, all right, way too easy to access for you, Ryan.
It really was. It was just right over there.
Knows what the hell else he's going to pull out.
I know. That's a great point, Devo. All right, let's get to this. Look, 5 questions or so for Rick. He doesn't know what they are. Want to get his Over Rick Actions in real time based on the news of the week. And you'll be happy to know we had Ivory Tower submitted questions too, so Devo helped contribute to this. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
It's amazing how he's like one of those lizards in my backyard. They just change colors according to whatever environment they're in.
Yeah. They're called chameleons. All right, here we go. You ready? We talked about it just a second ago.
Giant iguanas down here, but that's okay.
Tell me what you think about this. I saw a report coming out of one of the last night's games, the game in which the Jacksonville Jaguars got dismantled in Western New York by the Buffalo Bills. Shad Khan, who I would imagine you probably know a little bit, is generally mild-mannered, and apparently he was as angry as folks close to him had seen him. If you're Trent Baalke, the general manager, if you're Rick Spielman, the general manager, what's that conversation like on Monday, or in this case Tuesday, when the owner calls you in and he's spitting mad because you guys have played like crap for 8 games now?
Yeah, and they have not looked like the Jaguars we've seen in the beginning of the year, and those conversations are not pleasant. And I just gave a quarterback $55 million a year and made him one of the top quarterbacks, and he's playing like dog doo-doo right now. And so those are, and I'm sure Mr. Khan is not very pleased with all the money that he's doled out with some of the stuff he did in free agency a few years ago. And they just look like a disjointed football team. There's no rhythm on offense. Defense, I understand they were banged up on the defensive side of the ball, But my God, why are you running man coverage when you got a banged up secondary against a Buffalo Bills team? And everybody says that, they were retooling, rebuilding, and they look like they're ready to make another run at the Super Bowl. So
really do.
If I was Mr. Khan, I would be extremely upset because this is the third year and we're going in the wrong direction. Instead of ascending, we're descending. It's almost like watching Debo on Tuesdays and Thursdays. He descends down to this podcast, and then he ascends right back up the totem, the ivory tower, once the show is over.
So you said you took it from the perspective of Mr. Khan. What about the perspective of Mr. Balky sitting in the meeting with Mr. Khan, who's banging the desk as to why are we in this situation?
Those are sleepless nights, and they want answers. And so hopefully you're able to provide some answers.
What's the answer then? Tell me the answer.
I don't know. I'm not sitting in there. I didn't watch the tape. I didn't sit in the meetings. I didn't hear what the coaches are saying, although reading some of the clips from Doug Peterson's press conference, it sounds like he doesn't really know the answers right now. So whatever it is, they got to figure it out because they do not look like the same football team when Doug Peterson came in and they started to move up. All of a sudden, they are going in the wrong direction, and it seems to be getting worse every week. So they better figure it out and be able to figure it out pretty quick, or else there may be some changes coming in down there in Jaguar land.
Yeah, so 10 quarters into the season, going up to the halftime of the Monday night game, the Jaguars had scored 33 points over those 10 quarters. The Bills scored 34 points in the first half.
Yeah, and guess what? Trevor Lawrence isn't going anywhere. So someone will figure out how to get him back on track real quick.
Yeah, and you talked about we haven't gone back and watched every single throw that Trevor made.
I'm going to tell you this because I've had those conversations where I go to the owner, hey, we need – this guy is our future. He's going to be the face of the franchise. He's going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the league. I need X gazillion dollars for this contract. Okay, I want to see the results. And right now we're not seeing the results, which is very can keep a GM up late at nights.
Right. And owners, based on my experience, I'm not a billionaire, typically aren't in the business of losing money.
No, they're not. No.
Yeah.
That's why they're millionaires.
Right. And Pete Prisco talked about this yesterday, and I don't know if they benched Anton Harrison, the right tackle, the former first-round pick, or if they just took him out at the end because he wasn't playing. Walker Little came in and was playing right tackle at one point. But Anton Harrison's had a tough year. Trevor Lawrence threw one of the worst interceptions I saw all season. I don't know if it was Brian Thomas Jr.'s fault or if it was Trevor's fault, but someone's at fault because it was a terrible play to have to watch unfold if you're a Jaguars fan or the owner. I don't know where the answers are, and I think the way the Bills are playing, they might be the best team in the NFL right now.
Yeah, and that kudos to Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott tells you what kind of job they do, even though the outside noise is saying you guys are retooling or rebuilding. There's no way, and yet Josh Allen, and I give a lot of credit to Joe Brady. And watch this. Joe, if they keep going the way they're going, Joe Brady's going to be on everybody's watch list as a head coach, and he's going to get a lot of interviews next year for what he's done since he's taken over as the offensive coordinator. And the thing that made it the worst out of anything, and thank God there were two games because I'm sure people switched over to the other game because the first game was out of hand on Monday night, but you're on national TV in the spotlight. And that's one place you do not want to get embarrassed with your ownership sitting in the sitting in the suite on national TV.
And I think we can officially close the book on Mac Jones. He came in and immediately turned the ball over. So I'm out on Mac Jones now. That was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Well, how many fans did you really have? It was like, fourth quarter of a preseason game.
Yeah, but worse, except it counted. All right. Let's go from a former first overall pick in Trevor Lawrence to former third-round pick who has refound himself. This question was submitted by Debo. If we use Malik Willis as an example, what are the benefits and how do you go about scouting other teams to buy low after that player necessarily wasn't doing what the expectations were initially and figuring out how that fits the team that you want and the success that you think that player can have? Because Matt LaFleur has spoken in glowing terms about what Malik Willis has done in such a short period of time. Sort of what we heard last year with Josh Dobbs and Kevin O'Connell. Have you ever had any experiences with that? And how do you find gold in a player that originally didn't seem to be working out in his the first place he landed once he got into the NFL?
To me, it's again, everybody's going to miss on picks and personnel, but when you put a player, especially a quarterback, in the right situation with the right team, with the right coach, and I think Matt LaFleur is right now looking like a candidate for Coach of the Year, what he's doing, and understanding what Malik Willis does best. And it's amazing for him to come in when he came in and being able to implement an offense that fits his skill set. That's an incredible job coaching. Now, we said the same thing about Josh Dobbs, the Pastronaut, but all of a sudden defenses started catching up what the Pastronaut does, and the Pastronaut came what the Pastronaut is. So there's 2 games now that Malik Willis, and kudos to him for going back to Tennessee and in my opinion, playing better than Will Levis did. And I know we're going to talk about Will Levis down, but that just tells you how important coaching is in this business. And, we've seen the resurgence of Sam Darnold, of Baker Mayfield, when those guys, for whatever
Justin Fields
is 3-0, whether you like it or not. Do you sit him or do you not sit him? I don't know. If Pittsburgh's undefeated, no one gave them a chance either this year, including yourself. But
wrong.
So it's just amazing to watch some of these quarterbacks that are left for dead on the side of the road. They're roadkill. Someone, figures out, well, maybe I can resurrect this guy in some way, shape, or form. And we're overreacting because it's week 3. And is Will Levis now Baker Mayfield and the Sam Darnolds of the world? Or will he end up being Josh Dobbs of the world after he lit it on fire for 2 weeks and then everybody figured out what the hell he is?
Yeah, and Brian Callahan had to come out and answer questions about whether Will Levis is going to keep his job or not after another shaky performance. Let me ask you this, because the more we watch these young quarterbacks, the less I'm convinced that I know who's going to be good and who isn't. How important, because they're all incredibly gifted and all the other things that come along with being drafted into the NFL, especially if you're in the first round, how important, and this sounds silly, is confidence? Like, how important is it to have someone like a Jim Harbaugh who's rah-rah and players buy into it, whether they're 18 or 25, and you start believing in yourself? Because I think the way you hear Matt LaFleur talk about Malik Willis and the teammates that Malik has on his team now that previously knew him from playing together in college or before that even, it seems like he's playing with more confidence now. And you look on the other side of the field, Will Levis, every time he makes a mistake, it's like he's looking to the sidelines to see if he's going to get yelled at.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge thing. It's coaches are psychologists too, but you have to know the demeanor of each player. So some players, if you put a foot up their arse, they respond that way. Right. Other players, if you put a foot up their arse or you're yelling at them, then they go in the tank. So to me, it's understanding what motivates that player or how to coach that player and how to get the best out of that player. And some guys don't respond to tough love. Other guys, respond differently to different ways, different styles of coaching. So I think it's up for the coaches to also understand the kid. And this goes all the way back to why you do this at the combine, and all the interviews and the Zoom meetings and stuff to figure out how this kid ticks or what makes this kid, and try to do that as much as you can. So when they do come in the building, it's not like everybody is getting coached the same way. To me, with the way that the players are coming out now, that it's almost individualized on how you motivate these guys and how to get the best out of them. And there's different ways to do that.
And I know our buddy Pete Prisco gets angry at you about this, but that's also why the psychological testing is important, right?
Correct. Yeah. We used to get, and now whether coaches used it or not, I don't know, but I would give them from our psychological testing, this is the best way to coach this kid to get the best out of him. Does it match with what the scouts had gotten on the road,
right,
as far as resources and as far as all their sources out there telling us, hey, if you want to get the best out of the kid, coach him this way. And then does a psychological testing prove it or not prove it? Are they two different things? We'll then get to the bottom of it.
Right.
That's why teams are investing all this money with all this resources out there, because you can't afford not to get the best out of these kids as you possibly can. And we're seeing with the injuries already happening in the first 3 weeks of the season, which is nothing new. It's always injuries. Young guys are going to have to play. How do you get them ready to go? How do you hide their weaknesses? How do you put a magnifying glass on their strengths.
All right. Speaking of injuries, I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, I have a injury-related question.
I'm on my soapbox. Am I supposed to get on a soapbox for?
This is exactly what Debo's looking for. Overreactions, insights. We're getting it all. I got a few more questions for you after the break.
CBS Sports HQ, giving you college football coverage unlike anyone else.
We're talking Big Ten.
Pre- and post-game coverage.
Are you encouraged with the way that this team responded?
Along with breaking news.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
Highlights and expert analysis.
That streak could be in jeopardy here.
Sure. What was your main takeaway from this game? How impressive was his domination?
That really changed the football game.
Let's go ahead and have some more fun.
Another wild ending.
The chaos continues.
Turn to CBS Sports HQ.
Rick, I just got confirmation. This is episode 183.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you doing, at least I know you worked late and you had a 4-hour drive back this morning and you hustled to get back on, but you should keep count of that so you have that in hand even when you come back and you're tired. I'm anxious to see how you perform when you're at your worst. And right now it's been so we need to pick it up.
No excuses.
That's my bedside manner, old school. Put a aspirin on it, tape some aspirin to it, and let's roll.
Okay, I want to hear your Dr. Rick bedside manner for this question. Also, Debo submitted. Tua Tagovailoa's had the injury history. We know he has another concussion. He's out for another 3 weeks at least, it sounds like. Skylar Thompson got banged up in the game in which they really didn't have a chance in Seattle.
What kind of game plan was that? It was Skylar Thompson throwing the ball.
Let me ask you.
Seattle cannot defend the run very well, and you start with a couple of nice runs, but then you abandon it and you get your arses kicked, and you traveled 6 hours across the country to get your arse kicked because you don't run the ball. Come on. You
and Debo are mind melding. His question is this: can you explain why the Dolphins didn't have a backup quarterback plan beyond Skylar Thompson if we knew Tua's injury history and the potential for that to be a situation? I'm
thinking that they have a lot of belief in Skylar Thompson.
Well, you just explained why that's not a good idea.
Well, I'm just telling you, I'm sitting in meetings, and if Mike McDaniel and the coach say, this guy is good enough to keep the ship afloat if Tua does get hurt. And we have to adjust our game plan accordingly, but it seems like all of a sudden Tyreek Hill and Waddle and all these explosive playmakers are non-existent now as Skylar Thompson is the quarterback. So that's the one, and probably the hardest thing is to evaluate your own roster and do it honestly. And coaches have a tendency to create relationships and become close with players because they're with them every day. They know them personally, and they see them in maybe in a different light than someone from the outside looking in and say, hey, he just isn't good enough. But apparently they felt that he was, and that's why they went with the way they did.
Hey, let me ask you this. Let's say you need to cut a player, and it's the backup off-ball linebacker. Do you, if the linebackers coach or the DC doesn't want to cut that player, do you still have to, how's that work?
Yeah, well, those are the things you have discussions about. I mean, I don't understand the question.
You need to get a roster spot, so you're going to cut a backup.
Yeah, well, the coaches understand that you have your guys at the bottom of the roster that they may be getting flipped at some point. Now, if it's a young guy, that's a different story. Okay. I'm not going to expose him to the wire. If it's an older guy, yeah, maybe I'll expose him and bring him back as soon as we can get healthy.
Okay. And let me run this by you too. ESPN's Adam Schefter floated this on the internets on Monday. If you were Chris Grier, the GM of the Dolphins, and these are just three names that Adam Schefter mentioned, he didn't necessarily cite sources. He was just speculating. Zach Wilson is now the backup in Denver. Russell Wilson, we know, is in Pittsburgh, hasn't played yet. And then Dorian Thompson-Robinson is the backup in Cleveland. Those are the three names he mentioned. Any of those interest you? And what are you asking for if you're those teams and Chris Grier comes a calling?
Well, it depends on what the market is.
Well, we know what it is. It's not Sam Bradford, Rick Spielman market, but you're up against it.
Right. But I don't know that they signed Tyler Huntley, I believe, to their practice squad too.
Tim Boyle came in on Sunday when Skylar came out, and they have Huntley on the practice squad.
So maybe they see what Huntley is before they make that decision to try to make a trade. But I don't know if I'm giving up a king's ransom at this point in the season. And I know it's still early. It's only
third round pick. No.
Okay. It'd have to be a Saturday pick with some layers in it.
All right. Another great question by Debo. We talked about the coaching and GM job security concerns in Jacksonville. Does it feel like Mike McCarthy is finally in full-blown lame duck mode?
He was before the season.
But Jerry Jones gets, I think he gets stubborn when the media pushes back, and then he says, I'm not firing anyone, and he keeps them. And you're not sure if he's doing it out of stubbornness or if he legitimately feels like he's still all in on Mike McCarthy. But it feels like, I don't know what to make of that Cowboys team, except they're underperforming again.
Yeah. No, I'm sure it'll be monitored. I don't think rarely have they made changes during the season at all, have they?
Right. So, it was Bum Phillips. It was Wade Phillips the last time. I think it was 14 years ago.
Right. Unless it goes totally south, and they're too talented of a football team, in my opinion, to go totally south on it. But no, that's the way that Jerry Jones operates. But if you're going into the last year of your contract and you haven't got an extension, you're a lame duck whether you win or lose, because it's either going to get an extension or fired after the season. So technically, you're a lame duck when you're going in on the last year of your contract.
Yeah, but if you're Joe Flacco, lame duck in the final year of your deal, and you take the Ravens to the Super Bowl, that's a little different than what Mike McCarthy is currently experiencing.
Right. Yeah. If you win, you get an extension. If you lose, you don't.
Yeah. Part of me wonders, and just me speculating, if Mike McCarthy is looking to be done with this because of all the non-football related headaches he feels like he has to deal with. Again, I don't know what those headaches might be, but just speculating, watching his body language and his facial expressions and the stuff we hear coming out from the owner/GM. Have you ever experienced anything like that where it feels like a coach just looking, or a player's just looking to move on?
Not at this early in the season. He's talking about week 10.
Not week 3.
It's like, when is this, week 17, everybody's cars are packed in the parking lot when you have a home game, and they've already boarded up their houses and are moving on.
They're looking to get to Florida. All right, fair enough. All right, one last question, and then we'll get to the rookie quarterback evaluations and take a look at some other players as well. Andy Dalton played like the first overall pick.
Red Rifle.
He was dealing, and we saw throws coming out of that offense that we haven't seen from Bryce in 18 games. So it doesn't feel like, bar an injury, that Bryce is going to play again for Carolina this year. Beyond that, what is in the Rick Spielman crystal ball?
I didn't know Deontay Johnson was on that football team till this week. So it just shows you that a veteran quarterback that gets the ball out of his hands and knows where to go, that's just experience versus inexperience. That's not seeing ghosts versus seeing ghosts. That's confidence versus a kid that's, down on it, down in the dumps, So, but it was kind of an energizer. And how many times have we seen this, Mr. Wilson, that a quarterback has his first start, a la Baker Mayfield in LA in 4 days when they went out and won that night game, that it's all shits and giggles, and everybody's like, this is great. We're going to the bowl now. Let's go. But now all of a sudden there's tape, and it'll be interesting to see if they're able to have the same success that they had against the Raiders this past weekend. But an experienced quarterback, the Flaccos of the world, did it.
Yeah.
So any of these veteran quarterbacks that have had successful careers that are in backup roles right now know how to come in, and the offense looked totally different. The defense have actually played pretty damn good.
It felt like it spilled over to all phases of the game.
Yeah, it did. All of a sudden there was hope, and there was a ray of sunlight, and that there was a light at the end of the tunnel. Now, I don't know if that's another train coming or not yet, but at least there was some light.
You know, it's funny. And Debo, did you mark that Rick saying naughty words?
I'd say no naughty words.
He's fine.
Okay. The other thing is, next week, Rick, you know who the Panthers play? The Bengals.
Ooh.
So 0-3 Bengals, Andy Dalton fired on all cylinders. So that'll be interesting.
Red rifle rivalry game.
Look at that. Yeah. So if you're and I think our Jonathan Jones and some other people reported that there have been calls about Bryce. Is that a name you'd throw into the hat in Miami as well? Do you want to see him in a system that gives him an opportunity to succeed more than the one he's currently in?
That system may fit him now.
Right.
I mean, just because, Tua was a bust until he got into that system, that San Francisco system. And Bryce may be a better fit in a system like that, especially with the playmakers that Miami has.
I wonder if we're going to see going forward as we sort of make our way through this NIL landscape where agents and quarterbacks decide more like Eli Manning did where they do and don't want to go based on the system, not even no, you don't think so? You don't want it to happen, or you don't think it'll happen?
I don't think it'll happen.
Okay.
I don't want it to happen either. That's why you have a draft.
I know, but Eli Manning forced his way out, and it proved to be the right decision for him. Phillip Rivers had a lot of success in San Diego as well, but I mean, his family decided that wasn't where they wanted to go.
Are you giving a prelude to Shadir Sanders? And
I thought you were going to say Arch. No, I was just thinking about Bryce. Had he landed somewhere else, what would that have looked like? But we don't have a time machine. All right, Debo, want to take one more break and we'll do the rookies after that?
Let's break.
All right, second break, and we'll talk rookie quarterbacks, starting with Jayden Daniels right after this.
Well, you need your sports news anywhere?
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
All right, Rick. Turns out Jayden Daniels is pretty good.
Yeah, he is.
Completed 91.3% of his passes in one game, which is better than Joe Theismann, Doug Williams, Mark Rippon, anyone who's ever played in the
Dak Prescott, I think, had the record at 89%.
That's right. You're exactly right. That's right. I saw that graphic yesterday. Becomes his first player in NFL history with 90% completion, 250 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and a rushing TD in one game. Sweet mercy alive. Again, this goes back to what I said earlier in the show. We don't know how good these guys are going to be. Fit matters. I said this all weekend, and this is no disrespect to Jayden because he's making the throws, but I think Cliff Kingsbury deserves a ton of credit as well.
Oh, yeah. Cliff Kingsbury and Jayden Daniels right now look like the perfect match.
Right.
Because Cliff Kingsbury has worked with quarterbacks like this and knows how to utilize their strengths. It was incredible, and I got an opportunity while you were driving back to get ready for this show. I did watch the tape from last night, went back and looked at some of the tape. And the one thing that I really noticed is that he's getting more confident getting through his progressions. You see him look to the right and come back to the left. You see him more patient in the pocket. It was incredible with some of the deep ball throws that he made, the 55-yarder to McLaurin and then the touchdown. The ability to keep the chains moving. I think they were 5 of 9 last night on third down conversions.
Yep.
And it almost looked like Lamar Jackson type plays with his legs. Like, when Lamar Jackson sealed that deal in Dallas when he kept the ball on 3rd and 8 or 7, whatever, didn't get the first down. Jayden kept the ball. Not only with some of the throws he made, some of the incredible throws he made on 4th down with pressure in his face. That touchdown throw, the second one to McLaurin, I mean, he got whacked. And it was like, oh my God. I was like, I can't watch it. And the ball was right on time. The ball was right on the outside shoulder and made a great catch, but it was a great throw. So I think you're just seeing the scratch of the surface, and he's continuing to ascend each week. His accuracy, there's no question about that. Now that you're seeing that he can throw the ball down the field. So that 91%, well, he must have threw 22 out of 23 screen passes. No, there were some really nice shots downfield and at the intermediate level. This kid is continuing to grow in this offense. And it saves, even though I still think they have some holes on the offensive line, but because of his athletic skill set, because of his ability, that if it's nothing's there, he doesn't feel comfortable, he's not turning the ball over. 0. I said 0. And he makes plays to keep the chains moving with his legs.
So Debo just had a graphic up, if you're listening, of the highest completion percentage through the first 3 games of the season. And Jayden's on there. He's number 2 behind Drew Brees in 2018. Jayden as a rookie through 3 games. And the other name, 2007 Tom Brady. That team went undefeated in the regular season. So that gives you
undefeated. They already lost the game, just if you're trying to make that assumption.
And then there's the passing chart from Next Gen Stats that Debo has on the screen, showing that he was in fact pushing the ball down the field. And the lone miss there was the first deep ball that threw to Terry. I don't know if that was the miscommunication on route or he just overthrown by 20 yards. But after that, it was all dimes all over the field. 3 of 3 on 4th down, 3 of 3 in the red zone. And I think 2 of those 4th down conversions came late in the 4th quarter to maintain possession when who knows if the Bengals were going to turn things around. The Bengals kept shooting themselves in the foot once they got in the red zone, but that's not Jayden Daniels' problem. And I thought the offensive line was better against the run on Monday night, and they felt a little better in pass protection. Was Brandon Coleman playing left tackle?
No, I think was it Lucas?
Okay. I didn't get a chance to see that. I haven't rewatched the game yet either, so thankfully you were able to do that. But upon the broadcast viewing, it was a bunch of pops. You want to give him a drop, or you okay giving him a pop?
No, I'm fine. I mean, if he would have got 92%, I would have gave him a pop. But since it's only 91%,
hey, we have high expectations on this show. So the thing we talked about a lot last year is the first 2 weeks that CJ struggled. Where are the struggles for Jayden? Are they coming, or this is it?
I think it just in the first week it was a little bit helter skelter with him in the pocket, and then it's continuing to grow. But again, we talked about earlier in the podcast, quarterbacks fitting the right scheme with the right coach. And it seems like this, as of the first 3 weeks of the season, a happy marriage. And probably you're watching the offensive rookie of the year, no question in my mind. Neighbors may push him, but right now, Jayden Daniels, hands down, is the offensive rookie of the year, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the stat is through 3 games, Malik Neighbors has 20 receptions and 3 touchdowns, which is pretty good.
Oh my God, he's going to set the world record on fire too for a number of targets and catches for a rookie.
Daniel Jones got that part figured out. He might struggle with some other parts of the game. He knows who to throw the ball to.
Yeah, throw it to the number 1 overall pick.
Rick, you said in the preseason that Caleb Williams would have the same year as CJ Stroud did as a rookie. Are you ready to switch that to Jayden Daniels?
Well, we didn't talk about Caleb Williams yet.
Well, he's just previewing your preseason prediction.
Yeah, but I want to talk about.
Oh, okay, I see.
Playing as good is Jayden Daniels? No, but I think there's some other underlying issues in Chicago besides Caleb Williams. Although he is getting better. Yeah. So, we're out of the over Rick actions right now, Debo, of the show. We're trying to analyze these rookie quarterbacks and give opinion, and I haven't gotten the ability yet to give an opinion on Caleb Williams and what I saw, because that was big improvement for me.
Debo, the talent is getting mad at the producer.
No, I'm just sitting here trying to.
All right, I was going to go down the list of ranking these guys, but let's go to Caleb now, and we'll see if your ranking is the same as mine. Let's talk about Caleb. I think you're right. I think he did play better. I tweeted out a stat that when he was thrown on time, let me see if I can find it real quick, he was incredibly efficient, sort of the same conversation that we had last year when people were yelling and screaming about Caleb playing off schedule too much. But when he plays on time, 43% of Caleb Williams' throws versus Indianapolis were out. The ball came out in under 2.5 seconds. He was 19 of 22 for 115 yards, 1 touchdown, no turnovers, 0 off-target throws, and his expected points added per dropback was first among first and second-year quarterbacks. Then, after 2.5 seconds, once either the protection broke down or he started running around the backfield, he was 14 of 29, 248, 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions, and 28%, more than a quarter of his throws were off target. So add some context to that, Rick, based on what you saw in terms of the actual throws he was making.
Yeah, the stats speak for itself, and it's the same thing you see on tape. When he stays in the pocket, gets the ball out, and he's getting more comfortable reading what's happening on the back end of opponents' defenses, and he made some incredible throws. Roma Dunze and him are starting to come up with a pretty unique chemistry for two rookies playing out there on the same time. The difference to me is that Jayden Daniels seems to be calmer when their offensive line breaks down, and Jayden seems to make positive plays out of it. Where Caleb is, he's still doing that Rodeo Joe schoolyard crush boy stuff. That's from reference from Average White Band, in case there are any Average White Band fans out there.
Nice.
Loved the Average White Band in the 70s. Schoolboy Crush. Listen to it. It's very good. I can go through all the lyrics, but I'm not going to do that right now.
Thank you.
But he, like the pick six, okay, he took 1, 2, 3, I was counting 3 hitches in the pocket and stared the guy down. And that was easy, of course that DB at this level is going to pick it off and pick six. The other,
he was staring at Caleb the whole time. He was not fooled.
No. And then the other one was just a bad throw in the double coverage down the field.
Let me ask you about that one. It felt like, and you talked to me, you hinted at this a moment ago, maybe this is where you're going. It felt like the spacing on some of those routes were all whacked up, and like maybe guys weren't where they were supposed to be, and that could have added into some of the miscommunication or bad throws.
It is, and it's just like, and I think Caleb Williams, again, he threw double the amount of yards that he did, I think, in the first 2 games.
Yeah.
So, but he has to cut down the turnovers. And it seems to me, and Ryan, you may disagree, and I'm looking forward to your opinion on this. Not that I will listen to it, but I'll look forward to hearing it.
You take a break.
It's just Cliff Kingsbury and Jayden Daniels seem to be on the same page, where there's still a little bit of disconnect between Shane Waldron and Caleb Williams, in my opinion.
I couldn't agree more. I was watching the game live with Joe Musso, our coworker, who's a lifelong Bears fan, and he, even before we watched the Commanders game, he had said during the offseason he loved the idea of the Cliff Kingsbury Caleb Williams reunion in Chicago, and I thought Shane Waldron would be an upgrade over Lugetzi, who's now in Vegas, because of the success he had in Seattle with Geno Smith, and we just haven't seen it. And one of the beat reporters for the Bears tweeted out on Monday morning, Matt Eberflus, the coach, talked about they had DeAndre Carter blocking a defensive end on a 3rd and goal play, and DeAndre Carter probably weighs 165 pounds, soaking wet, maybe 180. He got blown up, and the play was blown up. No surprise there. And Eberflus said that Shane and I watched the tape at 6:30 Monday morning, and we talked it through. That's got to be a better call and a better matchup.
Right.
But if I'm seeing it and everyone else is seeing it, and they don't have any idea what they're talking about X and O's wise, but they can see this doesn't make sense from a physics standpoint, it just the same questions we had going back 2, 3, 4 coordinators in Chicago, not getting the most out of these players. And you talk about fit with Cliff Kingsbury and Jayden Daniels. You don't see that there. The other thing that I saw, and this is just me looking at the television wondering, it feels like for the second straight game, DJ Moore's body language has been not great.
Oh, I think, because he had some targets, but all of a sudden it seems like they're going to the rookie Dunze more than they are to DJ Moore. Last year, DJ Moore had a breakout years, with the production that he had with Justin Fields. But I think the other part of it is the run game with the Chicago Bears. Like
where's that been?
Okay, have been pretty good with Brian Robinson in the backfield.
Yeah.
That helps alleviate some of the pressure on the rookie quarterback. And the Indianapolis Colts may be one of the worst run defenses in the league, at least for the first 2 weeks. And yet Chicago couldn't run the ball on these guys. So to me, getting a more efficient run game, I mean, DeAndre Swift is just non-existent. And you got a big back like Rashawn Johnson, that I haven't seen or really noticed yet in this offense. And he's like, to me, a Brian Robinson. It's a big physical back that runs hard between the tackles. And he's very talented. We liked him when he came out, even though it was behind Bijan Robinson at Texas. But Rashawn Johnson's a very good running back, yet he doesn't seem to be a part, for whatever reason, of this offense right now.
The other thing I mentioned, the DeAndre Carter matchup against Tyquan Lewis, that didn't make a lot of sense. The other thing didn't make sense was in the strip sack that cost them possession of the ball with Caleb. They had Cole Kmet blocking Leatu Latu.
Right.
I'm not a genius. And I when you went back and watch it, what they wanted Mercedes Lewis and
yeah, they wanted the tight ends to double team them.
And it looked like Mercedes actually pushed Latu around Kmet. Whatever the case is, let's not overthink this. And let's not have the first defender going up against the tight end, the first defender of the draft last year. Let's just protect the quarterback who's already a rookie, who's already taken a ton of hits, and just simplify it. Because I think your point is one that this is the best game Caleb's played so far in 3 games. He did a lot of things that you should be excited about, but he has to get help from people that are older than him and that have spent more time in the league. Because how do you manage that frustration if in fact DJ Moore's frustrated? He's a veteran, and you have the rookie quarterback who's not necessarily in a leadership position yet.
That's part of the coaching responsibility too, and right. they've got to figure that out pretty quick.
You want to give Caleb a pop or a drop?
I'm giving him a pop.
Mine too.
I didn't like the interceptions, but he looked like he took a step forward in this game.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You can't have the interceptions. And the other stuff you can build on, but the throwing late to the flat with a corner staring you in the face, that's not going to work long term. But overall improvement, I'll tell you someone that made real improvement. No interceptions. When I went back and watched Bo Nix yesterday, I didn't realize that everyone in the secondary in Tampa Bay was injured, and Vita Vea was out up front. And I said, why are they playing off the entire game? Because it was 1, 2, 3 out for Bo Nix, and he looked great. And this is no discredit to him. He took what they gave him, and he looked exactly like what I would imagine Sean Payton was expecting from that Oregon version of Bo Nix. So great game for him. Played with a ton of confidence. Ran for a touchdown. Almost threw a touchdown. Cortland Sutton couldn't get his feet in on the sidelines there. Ball came out quickly. Ball came out on time for the most part. Almost threw 1 interception, but I think otherwise it's improvement. That's what you want.
Yeah, no, I thought it was his best game and going into week 3. And is there some kind of common theme here that these rookie quarterbacks are getting better the more they play? So, but it looked like the defense was outstanding, in my opinion. I thought Vance Joseph did a great job game planning, and they still had Baker Mayfield. And I thought they did a great job defensively, but Bo Nix didn't turn the ball over. He's had 2 interceptions, I believe, each game, or 5 interceptions total for the year, whatever it is right now. He didn't turn the ball over. When you don't turn the ball over, it gives you an opportunity to win. And he made plays with his legs. He made smarter decisions. He made the biggest improvement, in my opinion, on not waiting for a receiver to get open, but actually anticipating. And it looked better timing with Sutton and Mims and Junior and all those guys on that roster. It looked like it was more in rhythm and on time. And it looked like Bo Nix was more comfortable seeing what he saw and making very good decisions and processing a lot quicker, where the game looked like it actually slowed down for him. Right. In those first 2 games, it was too fast for him. And again, I understand all the back end and how beat up Tampa was going into this game. But you got to remember, Antoine Winfield and a couple of those guys didn't play last week, and they went up and beat Detroit. So I don't know if they thought this was a homecoming game, but that's why there's no homecoming games in the NFL. And Bo Nix, credit to him and Sean Payton, they look like they were in sync and in rhythm and got him to play at a higher level. And it seems like sometimes these coaches take a couple of weeks to figure out what this guy really can and can't handle, and then they adjust accordingly as they continue through the season.
I'm going to speak for you here. You're going to give him a pop, aren't you?
Yes.
All right, this is how I grade them, and you can grade them however you wish, but I'm going Jayden, Bo, Caleb in terms of how they performed in week 3.
I'm not going to argue with that.
Okay. And then
Does Jayden get an A+? Jayden A+ or no?
A+,
no.
Rick?
A.
He completed 91% of his passes.
I don't do pluses and minuses. Now it's a principle thing.
I'm going to send that to every Commanders beat reporter and say.
Send it to Adam Peters, too.
Yeah. He did A. He did great. A's great for me.
I do want to talk about Drake May because he got mop-up duty 1 series in the 4th quarter. And I had heard actually last week before he came into this game that they're talking about playing him in the next few weeks, even if Jacoby's healthy. I'm with you after watching that game. He got absolutely demolished. You talk about a preseason backups in there and you're just taking a beating type game. He really didn't have a chance. I couldn't tell anything in terms of whether he's gotten better or not. I know he's taking 30% of the reps, first-team reps during practice. But the good thing about practice is you can't hit him. This was tough.
tough. This is going to be a situation where it may be a Bryce Young situation with the way that offensive line, and they got a bunch of guys now, where I watched it. He's staring down the receivers like he did, although he got better in the preseason. We had threw almost one interception, had a nice throw down the seam. He has to speed up his process. His process looks slow to me getting through the progressions, although he doesn't have much time. Made a nice scramble. So I think it's make sure the kid has a chance to have a chance. And if you throw him out there to the Wolves, make sure that he has enough playmakers, which they don't have right now around him, and their offensive line is in shambles.
Right. I'm with you 100%. And he's only 21. It's not like he's like Bo's 24, Jayden's 24. They've been around the block a little bit, and Bo had some struggles early on, even though he's a little older. He's coming around in week 3, but there's no urgency to get him out there because I think you do more damage. You know, even though, again, our buddy Pete Prisco's like, throw him out there and see what happens because you'll know if he's tough or not. I don't think that's necessarily the answer. Apparently you don't either. All right. Debo has made an executive decision, Rick. So before we talk about our second-year spotlight player, we're going to talk about the rookie standouts real quick. Are you able to make that pivot?
I can pivot.
All right. Let's keep it going offensively, and we'll talk about Rome Odunze, who put up some big numbers for sure. But let me ask you this, because I watched Rome, and he's getting closer. He had 11 targets, 6 receptions for 112 yards and a touchdown. He's getting closer to being more consistently what we saw last year at Washington. But I think they're moving around a lot more than he did Washington. He looks a little uncomfortable in the slot in terms of the routes he's running, and he cut a couple routes off short that I thought left Caleb out to dry. Balls got knocked down. He tracked that ball really well on the deep over or the corner, whichever one that was on the sidelines there. So he's getting better, but just like Caleb, it's a process, and he's not quite to where he was last year in terms of dominating.
I think he took a huge step forward this week because they're utilizing what he's most comfortable with, and that's stretching the field. And great over-the-shoulder catch on that concentration to go up and get that ball in a contested situation. I thought he was very smart adjusting his routes to QB scramble. You see his speed on the deep crossing route going across the field. All the things that highlighted why he was so good at the University of Washington showed up in this game to me. Now, the slot stuff is new to him, but I think he's improved as a route runner. He looks like he's not thinking as much as maybe he was in the first 2 games of the season. So I think he's going to continue to ascend, but they're at least doing some things with him where he knows that I'm really good at this. Yep. And let me do this, and we'll continue to work on some of the nuances of the receiver position. But I think he's going to be a big-time asset when they start to really emphasize what his strengths are right now, and that's stretching the field, utilizing his speed, and utilizing his big body to go up and get contested catches.
Caleb was the first quarterback in this draft class to throw a touchdown. It was actually to Rome out of the slot. He ran in the flat there, and that was actually the tougher throw than the slant that came in front of it.
Yeah, stat, just to put in our record books, because no one will ever remember this. Jayden Daniels' first touchdown pass was to who?
Trent, not Brown. Trent, what's Trent's last name? He went to Grambling because I had to look it up.
Yeah.
I can't remember his last name now. What is it?
No, now I've gotten blank. But no one will ever remember his first offensive touchdown pass went to an offensive lineman.
Yeah, that's a great stat. God, what's Trent's name? Let me look at it real quick. Trent Scott, not Trent Brown. Trent Scott, offensive lineman out of Grambling. Do you know who Brett Favre's
the worst touchdown dance I've ever seen in my entire life?
That Trent's been waiting his whole life for that. Let the man have it.
Yeah, God.
Here's a little trivia for you, Rick. Do you know who Brett Favre completed his first pass to?
No.
Do you know that, Debo?
Deion Sanders.
Brett Favre completed his first pass to Brett Favre. It got knocked down. He caught it. Fun fact. All right. Apparently, I'm the only one that liked that. All right. Rome's getting better. So big day for him. So we want to shout him out. And the other guy we got to talk about, one of my favorite players from the Combine conversations, not because of the way he played, but because he gave Rick a hard time on set. Accused Rick of watching MASH when everyone else was watching Netflix. Braden Fisk. Defensive I like that one.
Maybe mash or something over there. I don't know.
He hit you with the mash. Thank you, Devo, for having that handy. Florida State, second-round pick by way of Western Michigan. Played with Jared Verse at Florida State, plays with Jared Verse now. And those young bucks are getting after, including Kobe Turner and Byron Young in L.A. Braden, 7 pressures, had 2 tackles, and he was a handful as a pass rusher. Against the run, Trent Williams had some conversations with him, but when he went into the right side against McKivitz, he had a little more success against the run. But I thought as a pass rusher, all the things we saw last year at Florida State, he's quick, he's powerful, he can shoot the gaps, he uses hands well, so on and so forth. If Brock Purdy weren't such a good athlete, he might have had 2 or 3 sacks.
Do you remember what he said on the stage at the combine when I asked him about his short arms as an edge or as a pass rusher?
You tell me, because when I repeat it, I always get it wrong and get angry at me.
Well, go ahead, repeat it so you can get it wrong and I can get angry at you.
He knows he has short arms, so he had to find ways to be better to combat the short arms, and that was being quick. Is that right?
Yeah. What would you not pay attention when we talk to these kids? Because the first thing that popped out into my head when I was watching this tape is what he said on the stage at the combine when I asked him about, at the next level, everybody's going to be commenting on your short arms and can you rush the passer inside? And he said, I know I have to be quicker than that offensive lineman to get into his body before he gets locked onto me, because then I can work the edges of the blocks. And that's exactly what he did this game. And we talk about the hair on fire, or the effort, the grit, the
Going Jesse.
Yeah, going Jesse, all the little things that you like to say. But what he said at the combine is why he's going to be a unique pass rusher. Actually, when I watched this tape, was exactly what he did. And he did it down at the Senior Bowl in the practices we watched.
Yeah, when I hear about Braden, the first thing I think about is the MASH comment. So I apologize for not remembering the other part. So, and he had a good pass rusher up against Trent Williams as well. Now against the run, Trent Williams is.
Yeah, he needs to do a little better job getting off blocks. That's where them short arms kind of got blocked.
Trent Williams is a grown man. It is fun to watch. The Rams, young defensive lineman, Kobe Turner, Braden Fisk led all first and second year players in pressures. They each had 7 each. And Jared Verse, the rookie first-round pick, and Byron Young, last year's third-round pick, combined for 5 more pressures. So even though both teams were decimated by injuries, shout out to the way that the defense played for the Rams, getting after it and beating that 49ers team. But Braden Fisk, we talked about it at the Combine, even before that, the Senior Bowl, that he probably was a late day 2 guy, probably day 3 guy coming into Mobile, and that felt like it changed that week. Does that sound right?
Yeah, but you remember how well he played towards the end of the season.
Yeah.
No one was talking about him this time of year last year. And then all of a sudden, the way he was playing, and I can't remember the game, where maybe it was Florida, whatever game was at the end of the year, they couldn't block him.
Mm-hmm.
That the way he finished at Florida State and how that carried over to the pre-draft process with the Senior Bowl, and then the Combine. And one of those guys, Ryan, it's always telling, throw the ball out in the yard. He's going to be the first one to go out there and want to play, no matter what the circumstance is.
That is Braden Fisk to a T. Tough young man. And the funny thing is, Rick, is that we talked to him before he worked out, and I think he ran in the 4.6s. And once he worked out and people saw the athleticism in shorts and T-shirts and, confirmation bias for what they saw on tape, that's when everyone else started getting on board with Braden Fisk. So good. I'm glad for him. He had a big game. Big things ahead for him. All right, Diva, one more break, or are we going to go straight to the disaster that is Tennessee Titans football?
Let's hit it. Let's go right to the disaster.
All right, second year spotlight. I'm just making up segments as we go through this season, Rick. And I thought, who better to talk about? Not Jalen Carter. Debo's very angry that we didn't talk about his Jalen Carter, who went absolutely bananas in that game. And I'm sorry I missed it. I'm going to go watch it this week. I'm excited to see that. Glad you finally decided to show up to work, Debo. But Will Levis, who showed up to work for 3 straight weeks, and there are a handful of plays that make you wonder, has this man ever played football before? Now, he does a lot in terms of the arm strength, making relatively good decisions, getting the ball out quickly. I wish he would slide at some point instead of taking huge hits. But the decisions that are costing this team football games, how sustainable, how much longer can you put up with this before you got to figure this out?
Well, it magnified even more because Will Levis, a quarterback they traded, went down there and beat them on
Malik Willis.
So at least they weren't bonehead. They were less bonehead plays this game. The pick six, I mean, he just stared down.
That's pretty boneheaded.
But it wasn't like I'm flipping it around my back and through my legs and, or, you know.
But the fact that we're having to have that conversation's troubling, isn't it?
I'm just saying they're bad decisions, but not bonehead decisions.
All right. So Debo put this quote on the screen. I might be wrong about Titans quarterback Will Levis. I thought he would take a big step forward this year, but so far he's been a disaster. Guess the person who wrote that.
Petey?
That's Pete Prisco, who said that Will Levis is the next coming to Josh Allen. His words, not mine. So he is even having to back off of that original statement.
But then you see some really nice throws. So you don't want to throw this kid the back shoulder throw to D-Hop for the touchdown. The arm talent, I still think he needs to work on his touch.
Yes.
The same stuff we saw at the pro days are showing up on tape now. That's why it's against Pete's role. But if you go out there and watch these guys and watch how they throw, it's amazing what translates to the next level. And
because late in that game, he threw a laser on a check down that almost was intercepted.
I thought I was put the guy in the hospital.
Maybe he was mad at him. But okay, this is obviously more above the neck than physical, because physically, you know, no one looks like Will Levis and he can throw the ball up through a wall. But as I talked about earlier, is this a learning lesson for Brian Callahan, the first-year coach, as well, about how you can't coach him like you coached Joe Burrow or whatever the example is, because clearly you got to get those stupid plays out of his head. And as number one Will Levis fan, Pete Prisco will tell you, if you take away the 5 stupid plays he's made this year, the Titans are probably 2-1, 3-0.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. They need to stop the run better on defense, at least in the Green Bay game. But, you know, the interception, I mean, McKinney, which was a great pickup out of the Giants that Green Bay picked. Xavier McKinney, the free safety, had a great break from center field on that interception down.
And that's late in the game. And I know it was just one single high safety, and that's a great play.
They're still in the game. This is why it's kind of boneheadish. It's the fourth quarter. It's 3rd and 16. You're forcing it down the field. There's guys open underneath. Make it a 4th and manageable.
That's fair.
You don't have to be a hero. He plays hero ball. That's the problem with him. You got to get the hero ball out of him and try to just play, give what's given to you. And you're right, because when he scrambles, he's still, you know, trying to run through and truck dudes, and he can't truck dudes at this level, and he's going to get hurt again. So, but there's no question about the arm talent, and you watch some of the throws he makes, you're like, wow, that's really impressive. But it's the processing and the understanding what circumstance are we in this situation. Okay, it's 4th quarter. We're still within striking distance of winning this game. I know it's 3rd and 16. Just take what's given, and then let's see if we can get it on 4th down if we don't get it, instead of forcing the ball downfield against the Green Bay secondary, who I think now have 7 interceptions for the season. Wow. And Xavier McKinney has 3. And this team with Jeff Hafley as their new defensive coordinator has done a great job turning the ball over and getting the takeaways. So knowing that going into the game, make sure you understand that in order for you to win, you can't turn the ball over, and he's continuing to turn the ball over. Although it wasn't as boneheady as it was in the first 2 weeks, it was less boneheady.
He also had a strip sack, which wasn't his fault. Nicholas
Pete Frere has given up the most pressures out of any right tackle right now in the NFL, and that was beat fast. I mean, I don't even know if before he got the ball, the snap, that the guy was on top of him, pounding him to the ground.
Yeah, he just gave up the B gap, and then he looked inside like he was surprised that the edge rusher was interested in tackling the quarterback.
No.
But the other thing that, again, just me watching on the television, it feels like Will Levis is walking on eggshells because he's afraid he's going to make the boneheaded mistake. Like, he can't get out of his own way.
I know, eggshells, he's still making a boneheaded mistakes.
But he's not. You don't feel about him even like you feel about Caleb, for example. Like Caleb will make a mistake, but it doesn't. You don't feel like it's going to sit with him and affect the way he plays for the rest of the game.
I think the pressure is starting to build on Will Levis.
I agree with that. So how do you combat that is my question if you're Brian Callahan, the first-year head coach?
You better have some sit-downs. There's going to be some big boy adult conversations on what I expect and don't expect from my quarterback.
Does it matter at all that he's, quote-unquote, not a Brian Callahan guy? He was drafted by the previous – well, I guess Rand drafted him, though. Yeah, so Rand Carthon, the GM, was there. Okay, so that maybe that buys him a little time if that's something that you want to be concerned about. All right, so let's grade the second-year spotlight because we give pop and pop to Roman Braden. Roman Dunte and Braden Fiskus, the rookie standouts. Second-year spotlight, Will Levis. Give him a grade because that's a little more accurate.
C instead of D this week.
Okay, C. I think that's right. I'll give him a C plus since I give pluses just to make him, in case he sees this, I want him to feel a little better about himself.
Thanks, guy.
All right, C plus and a C. Got to get better, Will. All right, that's a wrap on episode 183. That's where we're at. Not 212 yet. 212 days to go, Rick. As always, thanks to my guy, Rick, for a great edition of Over Rick Actions. Thanks to Debo for producing. Thanks to all you guys who watch and listen. And Rick, big news.
What's that?
Thursday will be week 4 of with the first pick college quarterback rankings. And then we'll look ahead to week 5 as well. Alabama, Georgia is the game that we're interested in.
Ooh, 2 NFL teams.
2 NFL teams, big boy football. We'll see you guys then.